trust me, I get it. You're feeling the pressure to keep your faith separate from your work, worried that pursuing your God-given dreams might be seen as selfish or misguided. Here's what I've discovered. Our faith isn't a liability in our leadership. As a matter of fact, it's the source of our strength and wisdom. The real challenge is navigating how to boldly pursue our purpose while staying anchored in our faith. And that's exactly what the Beacon Show is all about. Each week, we bring you biblical wisdom and practical strategies from true beacons, Christian leaders who are illuminating the world. And it's also that you can let your light shine brighter and brighter. I'm Tamara Jackson, and this is The Beacon Show. Today on The Beacon Show, we sit down with my new friend Tom, a scrappy kid from a small mill town who turned $1,200, a plunger, and a pickup truck into a thriving property management empire. From sleeping in his car during the early days to building Coast Property Management with his brother over 37 years, Tom's journey exemplifies how faith and ethical business practices can coexist with ambitious entrepreneurship. In this interview, Tom shares hard-earned wisdom about sales, stewardship, and what it means to create value while maintaining your values. His unique perspective on both giving and receiving as a donor, board member, and business leader offers invaluable insights for anyone seeking to make an impact while honoring God. So get ready for a masterclass in servant leadership from someone who's lived it from the ground up. Enjoy. Well, Tom, welcome to the Beacon Show, where wisdom meets faith and success finds its voice. I'm honored that you took time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today to share your wisdom. Thank you for saying yes.
It's awesome to be with you. I'm kind of I'm a super fan. I tripped over you. I was like Google searching Jesus in the marketplace, and somehow or another I got to you. So good on you and the SEO or whatever happened there. But it's an honor to be with you.
Yes, the power of SEO. That's already a word of wisdom for our viewing and our listening audience. And I know that there will be so many more, Tom. But, as I was sharing with you before we officially hit record, it's always interesting to our community to learn a little bit more about the leader themselves and how they grew up. So let's start by you telling us a little bit about who Tom was as a kid. Now, I know that you were in sports a little bit, maybe not the best athlete, but you're in sports a little bit. So tell us about what it was like growing up.
The short version is I'm a scrappy kid from a mill town in the Pacific Northwest, public school product. Was blessed to be the oldest of three, having our sister, younger brother, with great parents, very middle class. I remember I went to Kmart and bought a shirt, and I was so proud of myself. I told my dad I saved $10. And he said, "Let me see the tag on it." He said, "No, you didn't. You spent 25, one of those kind of things." So, okay, I get it. The message was clear. Don't spend the family fortune on yourself because you got a sister and brother. And so I've just always baked in. We were raised Catholic and still practicing Catholic, or trying to be. And so that was just built into us. You're other centered, you're a team, all those kind of things. And nothing like a small group setting like your family to teach you that. I had not been east of Spokane or south of Portland when I was graduating from high school. And I'm old enough that, it was expensive to fly around back then. We didn't do these college visits like my kids did, all that I do now. So I just applied to stuff far away so I could just see what was east of Idaho. And I got into Notre Dame. So that was a whole, changed experience for me. I learned that there were lots of people that were wired like me, where I had kind of grown up having to, fight my way through the parking lot to my car after baseball practice. And so it changed everything. It kind of gave me a different view of the world, that there are lots of sweet, good people. And the one thing that was at the center of it all was Christ, right? And so I became kind of drawn to that mission. Fast forward, I graduate. I missed the West Coast. 4 Midwest winters was enough for me. So I applied for jobs out in all the West Coast cities, landed in a bank job in Seattle, kind of back close to home. My sister's now off to Gonzaga, and my younger brother starts at Notre Dame. So the empty nester folks were feeling it a bit. So it was a good move. 3 years in that, and I'm making loans to somebody in property management. He hires me away. And within a couple months, I realized I found something that I could do. I don't know if I liked it. Like back then, we didn't think about work that way. I was working on, ranches, shoveling manure and branding cattle. And, I got on it. Of course, a kid from the Pacific Northwest at some point is going to get on a commercial salmon fishing boat and, do the deadliest catch thing or that, my version of it. And so all that kind of stuff. So work was just work. Work was toil, the way I saw it. So something where I was just like indoors was like a gift all by itself. And so with just a little taste of property management, where I'm kind of blending that blue collar kind of background and that work hard, bricks and sticks kind of stuff with being able to take a phone call from, a Duke MBA at a desk in Manhattan who wants to talk about the debt coverage ratio on the loan on a building. And I could do both. I thought, well, this is great. So with that business degree, a little banking background, and just a taste of property management, I started Coast Property Management. 6 months later, my brother graduates and I get him out. And the two of us have been partners for 37 years doing everything the rise and fall and the other investing and the philanthropy and everything. We kind of do it 50-50. Thankfully, our wives are joys to be around and get along well enough to let us play it that way. So that's how I got to where I'm at today.
Wow. And if I read correctly, you guys didn't start with a lot of money. $1,200. Is that right?
Well, if my staff, watch this, they're going to laugh because they've heard the story every Christmas party. $1,200, a plunger, a pickup truck, and a little Moxie. That's what we started with. So, but in property management, it's really not a big capital cost front end. And I knew I was going to have to start a service business if I wanted to act on my entrepreneurial energy. So, we weren't going to go, accumulating capital because I didn't have any. I didn't know how to do friends. I didn't know how to do any of that. And out here, this is pre-Microsoft. So this is before there was like wealth dripping around here where there was a lot of opportunity to do that. So it was going to be a service business. And so, with $1,200, you can buy the state of the art back there, Tamara? I guess it would be like a clunky square Mac computer like you saw in Jerry Seinfeld's Death.
Absolutely.
That was it. I got a truck, plunger, and just, put a suit on and walked door to door and tried to get people to sign contracts with me, and off we went.
Wow. Now, that's an interesting point there, walking door to door. So that means this was not about relationships that you had already built, like no one was sending you all of these leads to get started. You took the initiative to go out and look for customers. Talk to us about why that's important. There's probably some entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs listening to us, and they're thinking, well, hey, maybe this is going to kind of fall in my lap. So talk to us about why it's important to take that initiative.
I just viewed that in the context of this idea that I just want to win. Like, I want this to work. I'm not going to cut corners because I learned from my family and my experience at Notre Dame that if you win and you cheat to win, it doesn't work. It doesn't feel right. Not only are we turning against God, but when we get there, most of the people that cut corners to get there are miserable, right? So I didn't want that. I just wanted to be happy and somewhat successful, and just kind of move our family along up through middle class to something else. I was also scared to death. Like I was, wound up sleeping in my car for a month when I started it, because I was too proud to go home. And so kind of did the homeless thing. Thankfully, it was July and it wasn't too cold. Stuff like that, right? So to me, like cold calling people, like that's easy. I had tried running my own Saturday live talk radio program. I mean, if you told me I had to put on a clown suit and jump on one leg and wave on the corner, and that's how I would get contracts, I'd do that. Like I didn't care. And I think that I've looked back on it and the other people we've been able to attract to kind of work with us, and other people that I work with that are maybe younger entrepreneurs, whether it's for profit, not for profit, like there's a winner's mentality that some people have. And if they're driven by the right set of values, they won't cut corners to win, right? I'm a basketball guy, so that's the guy that, hits you in the teeth with an elbow and then makes the layup. You don't do that. You play straight up. But so that's how I thought about cold calling. Well, this is actually kind of easy. First of all, I'm not out on a fishing boat in the middle of the ocean where I could die. And this is a lot better than wearing a clown suit on the corner. So why not? And it worked. Like I got worked. you know how sales is. You get 9 no's. A couple of those are some really, really hurtful no's, you know. I was not from the country club set. I didn't know money. I didn't go to the right school out here. I wasn't in a fraternity. None of that. I didn't have anything going for me. It was just me walking in the door, trying to figure out what worked.
Oh, I love that you've shared that, Tom, because, sometimes we think, well, because I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I don't come from this family, or I don't have this connection, that means I'm somehow disqualified from being able to be successful. And what you're sharing with us is, hey, I knew I didn't have those things. So that all it sounds like it almost became motivation and fuel for you to do the work that was necessary, always being ethical, always above board, but it's this kind of this whatever it takes mindset that you brought to the work, not using the things that you didn't have as excuses, but using them as motivation.
Yeah, and trying to be ethical and trying to be in the zone. We fail all the time. I think one of the great take homes in this is, especially in sales, and I was a raw company. Like I would very often, to close the deal, I would have to offer more than what maybe walking in the door I thought I had to offer, right? And then I have to deliver on it. And somewhere between hand waving and promoting and actually doing the work is where you have to land, right? And so as I've gotten older, I realized, as kind of the outside guy in all of our businesses, that I had to have to reconcile that all the time in my mind. And I have to compare and contrast with my competitors. Am I being respectful to them, or am I moving to the level they are when they're not respectful about me, right? All those things are going on, and you're just beating yourself up all the time. But the idea that you don't go out and impose yourself out there to see what happens is actually, to me, anathema, because if I am going to do this work well, sell this product that I think they need, then if I don't offer it to them, I have taken something from them. I've taken an opportunity away from them that might be better, right? So there was a side of me that was very other-centered in that I think this person needs what I've got. I'll stick my nose in there and experiment and put myself through the pain and suffering of a bunch of no's to find out. But when I do get it right, then that means I've helped them. It wasn't so much me selling something to them for my business to survive. It was finding people that were the right match for us so that we could get the contract, and then everybody wins, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think it's a helpful point to draw home, Tom, because I think a lot of what we hear around sales is focused on the individual, the person that's selling. I want to hit my goals, my objectives, etc. And what you're helping us to remember is that sales really is service. When we're doing it the right way, we are attempting to fill a need for someone. We believe that we have the solution, a better solution than what they have currently. And so we're actually trying to serve by introducing this product or service. And if we can approach sales with that mindset, then it takes a lot of the ickiness and the discomfort around doing it, because it's not really about us. It's about the person that we're serving.
I just want to bottle that up. You said it better than I've said it for 37 years. I've tried to describe it and you just nailed it. That's it. It's an other-centered way of thinking about sales and promoting what we're doing. It's okay to get a no. Either two things have happened. They don't need it, okay? Or I'm not very good at what I do, because if they actually needed it, then I failed. Because I didn't, and I used to do this with my sales teams over time. they would come back, they go, there's something wrong with that guy because he didn't see the light. Like, no, you probably missed something, because if it was that obvious, then something happened in the way we were trying to kind of tell our story. Oh boy, you did it so well there. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. I think there's, as I think about what you shared too, Tom, that means in your response, either it wasn't for them, or I need to get better at my communication, my presentation, so that the person can connect the dots between the product or service that I have to offer and the need that they have. Either one of those scenarios is actually a gift, because now I get more clear on who the customer is that really is going to connect with this product. And it helps me, it's feedback that's helping me get better at how I communicate the value of what I do. Now, that said, one of the things that I'll acknowledge, and I know you've experienced it too, Tom, even when you're at the top of your game, there are going to be no's. So I'd love for you to talk to us about how you stay motivated, how you don't let them no's get you to a place where you maybe mentally kind of check out and start taking it personal. Because I think that's what can happen often is, well, they don't like me. And in our heart, we probably know that's not the case, but it's easy when you get, especially when you get a lot of no's, to take it personally.
Yeah, and you can start to believe that it actually is personal, or there's something, yeah, about me, superficial about me, that they don't like. And maybe once in a while that is the case, right? I didn't go to the right school, or I don't look like this, or I'm Catholic. They don't, whatever, maybe that's what's going on. Okay. Okay. What always salved that wound for me, and I'm old enough to have gone to every motivational seminar, Tony Robb, you name it. Lou Holtz was a coach at Notre Dame, so I went to all of his, all that stuff, right? I've heard it all, right? Standing in my underwear in front of the mirror, telling myself I'm okay, and then go out and do it again, right? Sorry about that image, but I've tried it all. But nothing worked better than to re-examine my sales funnel. So we all know, for the most part, what sales funnels are. But basically, at one end, I like to think of them as sideways funnels, because if we think of them this way, it's almost like there's some gravity that will always create a customer for me. Well, not really. I kind of have to pull them along. But sales funnels are pretty simple, right? Out at the wide end of the funnel are everybody, in my case, in property management, for example, that owns an apartment building or an office building, right? And I got to get a certain amount of those to say yes to just talk to me, right? And then the next, there's 5 or 6 steps all the way to signing a contract. And so I would just re-examine that and realize that no that I thought was a yes because it was way up the sales funnel could be replaced by a yes that I have a couple of steps up. So I just kind of focused on the yeses. What do I actually have still, instead of what have I lost? And I played a lot of sports in high school. I was kind of a decent baseball player, but I really loved basketball. I grew late, and I kind of got into it. Notre Dame a bit, wasn't varsity guy, but just all that stuff. And I still play. And one of the things you figure out in basketball, because it's live all the time, is like, if you get knocked down and they don't blow the whistle, you got to get back up because you're going to be playing defense, right? And so I just kind of kept that thought, and much of it wasn't sort of teaching myself how to reconcile it. I would revisit the sales funnel to reassure myself that I still had good stuff happening in there. But a lot of it was just brush it off quick. You hear that a lot in football. Dump it. Bad play, dump it, move on. You watch baseball players. Anybody watch the World Series last night? Somebody hits a home run off him. That guy has to come back. I got to figure out how to dump it and go. And I just kind of adopted that mentality.
That's so good, right? Don't stew in it. Don't overthink it and let it get you out of what you're called to do. Because I think that's the other thing that we're talking about here is it's not just about meeting a certain objective or hitting a number. This is a part of what I'm called to do to help others solve problems. And so I can't allow the sting of rejection, the no's, the things that I experience to get me to a place where I'm no longer serving. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you is dust it off, dump it, keep serving, because there is someone out there that needs what you have, right?
And maybe you think they made a bad decision and went with brand X. I still want to win. I will try to recover from the moment, but I will never let go of that. If I believe that we're a better fit than maybe the choice they made, I won't quit on that. I'll just kind of put in a tickler, and I'll just kind of, revisit what's going on. I'll try to get some market intel. I can't tell you how many times I got a no, lost a contract, and 2 years later came around and got a yes. It was because if I dump it completely and move on, I never have a chance to do that. So I didn't quit on them. I just quit in the moment and then built a new plan, right?
I love that. In sales, follow-up is key. And I think what you're highlighting for us is it's not just as you're working to hopefully get a yes, it's even after someone has said no. If you believe that you have the right solution in your mind, Tom, it's not now. And I need to do some more research. I need to do some more digging. and maybe work on the presentation. Maybe I need to connect the dots better. And I'm going to come back at this because again, it's from a place of service. I believe that we have the best solution to this person's problem. So why would I allow them to settle for something that isn't as good? Like no knock to the other person in the space, but if you really believe that you have the best solution, then you kind of, I think what I'm hearing you say is you kind of owe it to them to keep that conversation going.
That's the mentality, but of course, and I know this isn't just a pure sales pod, but I mean, you also need to bring feedback back to the operations side. There's always some healthy tension between sales and ops, whatever we're doing, right? And so if the market keeps telling me no, and all we need to do is change two things that we do, I got to tell the ops people, I need to be able to sell these things now. So there's that tension that's going on there. And that's going to be tough on us, and our margins are going to go here. So that kind of that triumvirate of sales, ops, and finance, always kind of talking and working on feedback, is actually how you get to the spot where you get more yeses. It's not necessarily always just our believing in our product, because we can believe in our product, and if it actually isn't better than the others, eventually we're going to lose. That's kind of the environment we can, but trying to do that in a way where we're not mad at each other, where we're somewhat respectful. That the salespeople aren't always right because we always think we are.
That's true.
Yeah, and I had the blessing of my brother as the inside guy, kind of working those other 2 points, so we could always find that sweet spot, And sometimes it'd be, we'll change this one thing we do to get better, but you're just going to have to sell past this other thing, because if we do that, we'll be upside down, right? So that's always the healthy feedback. And I always thought our faith was a big part of that, because we always thought of each other in that other centered way in that environment. Like if it was just about me and what I'm trying to, some sort of sales quote I'm trying to hit, right? Then I would approach them differently than if I thought, well, they deserve success too, right? They have an important part of this business too. No one's more important than anybody else. And so you can more easily maybe find compromise in that to be effective.
I love your thoughts around this, Tom, because it really positions winning as a team effort. It's operations, it's sales, it's everyone working together to accomplish the goal. And I'm also hearing this continuous improvement thing, right? Like we're all looking at it from the standpoint of how can we get better? What is the market telling us? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to adjust? And you use the term that I think is a really important one that I want to spend a little time on is margin. Now, one of the things that many of the listeners and viewers are learning is you can have really great product, you can believe in it, it can be an amazing solution, but in order to be both successful and sustainable, the numbers have to work. So talk to us about, for a person that maybe really doesn't get it, talk to us about what margin is and why it's so important.
Yeah, I sit on a lot of boards now, nonprofit and a few for-profits, and I just kind of work with lots of entrepreneurs now, and I see myself in them, and I remind them humbly, hey, if you let a sales guy run the business, we're going to be crushing the top line, and there'll be no dividends, right? But if you let the ops run it, we'll probably have soft sales, right? Nice margins, but maybe our revenue is flat or declining. So that's that healthy sort of mix there, right? That and only in a kind of respectful, other-centered environment can we really work together to find that sweet spot. So the reality is, you're just, as I mentioned a minute ago, sometimes your salespeople are going to have to go out the door with less than what they would want, but they still, once we agree that this is what we're going to do, there's no object. You can't go out and roll your eyes at the ops guys. You can't go, oh, the darn CFO told me this, You can't, right? So I think that interplay, and it changes all the time because the market's changing all the time. Competitors are showing up. So that feedback from the field, from salespeople that can sometimes get lost or not discussed is critically important, because only in that setting can the ops and the finance people be brought into the new realities of the marketplace. Because at the end of the day, there is nothing without the sale, right? I mean, it's not that the salespeople are more important, but there is nothing without that. So all we're trying to do is shape the product or service with the best we can without giving the margin completely away. And like I say, I'm guilty as charged. If you had come to me in my 20s and 30s when we started and said, how do you run a business? I would have said, sell, 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 and the rest is details. And my poor brother, who would take these, property management contracts after I oversold, the world, would say, and guarantee that we would be broke, 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 right? So, yeah. So I just think that interplay is critical. So what we've done, we've created a number of other businesses, and some we've sold and some we're still in, that are kind of in the real estate space. And so what we've done has been very intentional about forcing those three parties, sort of, you call it the CFO, the head of ops, and the sales head, put them in the room and force them to have a dialogue on a regular basis. Because otherwise it's tense. Like there's conflict often, right? But recognizing that and come up with some systems and ways to talk to each other in a respectful way, then we usually find that sweet spot.
I love it. Teamwork. Yeah, it's kind of that sports analogy again coming up, but it's so important because if the lines of communication are not open, it breeds misunderstanding, and a lot of division, and even sadly, name calling and all of these things, right? Blaming. So communication is so, so important, both within the organization, and let's talk about outside of the organization. So you shared that you serve on boards for both for-profits and nonprofits. Many of the viewers and listeners that are tuning in right now, one of their main goals is to be able to attract more donors and investors. Now, one of the things that we talk about in BEACONSHIP is, hey, that's amazing, and understand that the donor or investor has some expectations on how you keep the lines of communication open. Talk to us a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah, and I'm a promoter to donors of for capital campaigns and supporting our Catholic and Christian schools, and I do this with the public schools because we're all God's children, right? So we're somewhat we're trying to be broad in all that work. And then I'm a donor myself, right? I'm solicited, so I've seen all that. And then of course in business you're out there soliciting customers all the time. So there's a lot of parallels there. What I have found, at least in the nonprofit space with donors, is they have different expectations depending on how high up the donor pyramid they are, right? If you're building out a campaign and, you have a pyramid and there's a few, and they're big dollar donors here, and then you've got another layer here, and then all the way down to retail. And so the first step, and I was chair of the board for a large Boys and Girls Club operation out here in the north of the Seattle area. I think we had 15 or so clubs, and we built like 5 when I was in there, a bunch of gyms, and super fun. But we figured out that we were not doing that right. And so we had a different way we communicated with our top donors, pretty customized to what worked for them, because they were worth it. The return on investment for us to customize the way we want to talk to them based on how they want to be talked to was worth it. So we kind of have this sort of customized layer. And then we worked our way all the way down to kind of the retail donor, the $250 a year, the business that sponsors a kid thing, and they'd get a plaque and they'd get, pinged a few times a year, and then invited to maybe an event. So that was to me, that's the best system. And if you look inside I'm on a couple of college boards. If you look inside of how colleges do it, that's very often how they do it. The larger donors get a certain different styled, kind of customized set of attention. What I will say is that return on investment is still important, but of course, when we're talking about a nonprofit, the return is, are you fulfilling the mission? And I think sometimes, and I learned this early myself, when I was promoting something I was involved in, it was a nonprofit soliciting donors, I had to know how to measure return on investment for that donor base. And it can be very, very different, right? So we supported, there's a Catholic high school. It's about 25 years old. And we were in early on it. That's the only Catholic high school between Seattle and the Canadian border, is kind of right in our backyard. So we had a hand in helping get that on its feet. And if you ask the top donors over the years, what's most important to them, some would say success in all your extracurricular activities, and some would say, the number of Ivy League schools you get your kids into. I mean, it's just sort of all over the place, right? And the rest of us would say, yeah, but how much tuition assistance do we have to support the kids who can't afford to come there? So we're not just an elite school. That's like a measure of success. So it's all over the place. But I think the take home is, when we have to build our pyramid, we have to know what levels are in there, and then we have to have a different system of communication and marketing to each one of them.
Yes, because everyone is looking for something different and meeting those expectations, right? I think sometimes the nonprofit or the for-profit that is looking for the infusion of cash from an investor is, it's kind of going back to that same conversation we were having about sales. Is we have to be careful to not just be focused on us and what we're trying to accomplish and what this money is going to allow us to do. There is the other side of the equation. That donor, that investor is looking for something as well. Like they're not looking for a monetary thing from you, but they are looking for, I love that you reinforce that, they are looking for a return on investment. And that could be lives transformed. It could be opening up opportunities for people that otherwise wouldn't. But you have to be able to tell that story in a way that is meaningful to the person that is making that donation or investment.
Yeah, sure. And I learned this, trial and error myself, mostly calling on foundations, because foundations tend to be, pretty stable. They have, committees, and they vet things, and you're competing with other people asking for support from them. And, they just spit it right back to you. You better have some measurables for us. And this is the way we want to be communicated with or not communicated with, And so you kind of get forced into the game. When I see, I'm just helping a young guy right now who's got a really cool mission, very dynamic young man, introduced to me just sort of very recently. He's trying to solve the housing crisis in Portland, Oregon for people over 55. So it's a slice of an already pretty big community in a city that hasn't had success managing that issue. And he figured it out. He figured it out somehow at a young age that if I don't show them how many people over 55 we got off the streets and into housing, they're not going to help me just because I'm passionate about it, right? So I think that's the secret. It's not hard. I mean, if people are wondering why they're not having success because everybody's not jumping on board, this mission they're passionate about, it's probably because they don't have a measurable return on investment set up for it. The communication becomes pretty simple, customized at the top. It's sort of a standard system down here. Hey, and we have to understand, not everybody loves your mission, right? Or maybe they do, but they think there's another thing happening that's of a higher priority right now. That's what a no looks like when we're in the nonprofit business soliciting donors, right? It's okay. It's okay. There's a lot of suffering in this world. If they're trying to solve a different kind of suffering than I am, I can't, don't let that knock me back. I'll find somebody who is, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I heard you use a word earlier that sometimes is frowned upon, but I think it's a reality that there is a level of competition, not in the sense of saying one is a winner or one is a loser or one is bad or one is good, but in the sense that there are many people coming to the foundation, to the donor, to the investor, looking for support. And I heard you say it in your commencement speech. I mean, sometimes I can support financially, but sometimes one of the best things that I could do is maybe connect you to someone or open a door. Like there's many different ways that people can help. And there's also a reality that I may not be able to help everyone at the same time. So one of the things that I've had to learn in business, and that I like to talk to our community about in terms of donors and investors, is it goes back to something you said earlier. Just because today it's a no or it's a lower amount than you expect doesn't mean that there isn't going to be an opportunity down the road. But how you respond, like how you treat that person who didn't give you what you were expecting, is going to potentially make a difference in what the future looks like, right? So being able to stay positive, be grateful and thankful for whatever support, or even if it's a no right now, I mean, hey, thank you for the feedback. Thank you for letting me know. I'll keep going and I will find someone that is able to support, but don't close the door. It's kind of going back to what you said earlier. Don't close the door on that, because you never know what that could come into.
Boy, that's so well said. And I was thinking about, it's actually kind of a form of discipline. I think when I was living out of the back of my car for a little while, and I needed to win a property management account in the worst way. Getting a no hurt. That I'm still taking a shower at the Y and throwing a suit on to, get out the door. I mean, it was rough, and you get mad. They don't know your situation. To them, I'm fine, but you get frustrated. And so only discipline can cause us to kind of settle into that, allow a no to happen. Don't let that no somehow inflict upon what you think you need in the moment. That's not what's happening here. You're offering something. They may or may not like it. Maybe you did a good job. Maybe you did a bad job in the pitch. Maybe it's the right time. Maybe they have other priorities. What I think we owe as donors, though, and I mentioned it in that YouTube talk that you're talking about, when we say no, we might know someone who cares about this mission or can place it higher on our priority list and actually kind of support what they're doing. There's great value in that. That's just simple networking, right? That's just, and we learn that in sales. Well, I realize you're saying no today. Do you know anybody else in your world who might say yes? Not every salesperson is willing to do that. And so sometimes I feel like we owe it to them to offer that. Really good people that are promoting their business do have that ability to kind of drop it down to, well, I realize today it's not a fit, and I'll certainly call you back in 6 months as we discussed. But, and it's amazing how many times that will lead you to a solid trade. And thank you very much for that name. Would you be willing to call them ahead of time? So when I call them, all that kind of stuff, right? Just normal sales.
I love how you describe that, though, Tom. It is discipline, because we could easily kind of get in our feelings because we didn't get the answer that we were hoping for right now. But if we remain disciplined and focused, if we make a note, hey, let's follow up in 6 months, or let's check back in a year, or it could be 2 years. I know I've had instances in business where someone has told me no, and 3 years later, they're willing to get started. They're ready to move forward. So sometimes the sales cycle or getting to the yes is longer than we would like, but it doesn't mean it's like a forever no. I think that's one of the things. It's like forever no, it's never going to happen, totally give up. There could be a yes down the road, or as you have said, it could be that person can open a door for you. And I don't know, I'm sure you have experienced it too, Tom. There have been people that have not financially supported me, but have opened a door that led to so much opportunity, led to so many opportunities for revenue and so forth, because they believed in it enough to open a door and send an email or connect me on a text message. People don't have to do that, but it can be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, and most people don't like saying no. They put you through all the trouble to pitch whatever you're pitching, and they realize, for whatever reason, it's just not going to happen this time. They'd love to be able to throw you a bone, right? And very often, but sometimes we have to ask, right? Sometimes we have to kind of tickle our way in there. And like you say, sometimes those lead to even more than you thought you could have got right in front of you. I will admit, though, earlier in my career, levels of obsession about getting no's. Like, I remember I'd get in the car after you get the no and you're just crushed. And of course, a no is also a win for a competitor, right? So you both didn't get the deal and your competitor did, right? So they're stronger now. So there's a lot, of dynamics there. And you're sitting there kind of like, I'm gonna win that customer one day. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but one day. That's how you set up the discipline around your tickler systems, and you just don't dump it completely. You kind of come back around, and you can find ways to do it. And even in the nonprofit sector, a no today, well, I'll tell everybody a deep secret about how foundations work. A lot of them like to tell you no once just to see how you react.
It's fine. Yes.
Or do you have the stick-to-itiveness to overcome obstacles? Well, one of them is, I'm telling you no. And, what are you going to do about that? and they're going to sometimes test you with a first time no. And I found that to be the case in a lot, especially in the nonprofit world when you're soliciting donors. The first time no is sometimes a test.
It's funny that you say that, because I remember reading an article where this donor had, sent some organizations. He did end up supporting them, but he sent a smaller amount than he actually had in mind. And it was a test. He wanted to see if he got any feedback, any communication, did anyone acknowledge him, et cetera. And in some of the instances, he didn't. And then that nixed it for him. He's like, I'm not supporting this organization anymore because I didn't get what I was expecting. And so what you're helping to highlight for our viewing and listening audience is there are tests. Some people will say no the first time to see how you respond. Some people might say, oh, you wanted 100,000. I'm going to give you 10,000. Let me see how you respond to me giving you 10,000. Because as I'm processing what you're saying, Tom, what donors and investors also want to assess is your character. Like, who are you as a person, not just the organization and the mission?
Yeah, it's really I always think of it as kind of a risk management strategy. They're doing what we call in the business a toe dip. Let me just do a toe dip with this outfit, and with a small amount compared to what they asked. And that could be the case in investing in real estate deals, right? We get a lot of first-time toe dips, and then after they've tested the experience and we're doing what we promised them we would do, and the experience is what you say it was going to be, then they'll come in, right? It's a very common strategy. And so, a no could be that, will he give up on me? Or does he really believe that I'm a fit? And next year when we have our, foundation board meet to figure out who we're going to donate to, will he be in the mix? We would see those things happen all the time. So I think it's less about persistence and more about just reading the room, that sometimes a toe dip or a no is a test.
That's good. Wow. We've talked about so much, and I'm always amazed at how quickly this time goes. But I want to respect your time. So I want to narrow in on two final thoughts. We've talked about so much, and hopefully our viewing and listening audience has picked up on the wisdom that you've shared along the way. But is there anything else, Tom, that we haven't talked about that you would like to underscore as kind of that final piece of advice that you would give to those up and coming leaders that are viewing and watching and listening to us today?
Yeah. Well, yes. I wish I had earlier in my career really lived this in every way. But loving the sinner and hating the sin as a way to think of myself in the world and the marketplace has done more to help not the business success, but help me interact in that in a Christ-like way. Because people fail all the time. I'm a sinner. I fail all the time. It's amazing how when you start to see that and you fail, how often you can be forgiven if you just ask for forgiveness, right? A little more than that in the world in general would probably be good. I am not broken. I am a child of God. So are you. But we fail all the time, right? And so what's the system that we have to allow us to fall from grace once in a while and then come back? And if we all are kind of thinking a little bit that way in the marketplace, which is kind of one of the reasons I'm so fond of your program, is let's get more of that in the world, that Christ-like way of seeing things. Then we will recognize when someone else has sinned and they're broken, and we will help them find redemption. And that, more than anything else, that's sort of like the way I would print that over the top of my HR department.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's probably wouldn't work in the secular world today, but love the sin or hate the sin. Like, that's how you run every business that you're in. And look, there are some of us sinners that are so broken, we need to go somewhere else for a while before we can come back. I'm not going to take everybody's sin on, right? But that way of thinking of ourselves in the world, myself in the world and others, has really helped us reconcile through stuff. Because, and the punchline, of course, is bad things happen to good people. And people will do things that they're later embarrassed about. I've done those. We've all done those, right? So we have to have a system in place, especially if we're going to be self-proclaimed business leaders or running organizations. We have to have a system for that. So that kind of humble servant leader model that I've kind of built things around, where you're other-centered, but with this love the sinner, hate the sin sort of way of engaging it, nothing has done more to kind of help us find our way to what we think is success. It doesn't always turn into money. It usually works because people are drawn to that. It's made our companies some of the most diverse in the region for what we do. People of all incomes, race, we are recognized. I think, it's just remarkable who will come to that water because of those ideas, instead of other ideas of what that looks like. So I'm rambling a bit, but I just can't punch it home strong enough. We have to love the sinner and hate the sin. And if we stay in that zone, most of what we're doing will sort of find its way to a level of success that feels good. The kind of success you and I want for everybody, which is, you do it the right way.
That's so good, because not every success is good success. And being able to sleep at night and be at peace with who you are and what you've done, not perfect as you've shared, but you went into it, trying to do the right thing is critically important. Let's talk for our final minutes here, Tom, about legacy. And sometimes when I talk about this, some people are like, I never really think about legacy. Some people have thought about it. For you, what comes to mind when you hear the word legacy? And have you thought about what legacy you want to leave behind?
Well, I play so much basketball that I'm trying to build a whole bunch of people that'll be willing to push me around in a wheelchair when my when my legs and knees and hips give out or something. It's just, I should have quit a long time ago. But yeah, I think, well, I'm in upper 50s, early 60s, you start thinking about these things. It's really to try, for me, it would be to create a whole team of other younger people who can live out their values, their Christ-like values in whatever they do. And I'm in the marketplace, so I focus on that as a place. So if we can, and when you're in a place like Seattle, it's very unchurched. It's a lot of tech companies and stuff like that. I mean, you could be a Jesus lover walking around the 10th floor at Amazon, and you're scared. Like, you would never let anybody know you go to church. That's how it kind of works. So this is a great place to kind of test these things and give people the confidence to be who they are in the workplace, and then start to find ways to act on it. Because if we can have this a wonderful American system flourish the right way, where people can act, as free people, we are obligated to do that as moral free people. I think Jefferson had it right. You can't give this much freedom to people unless they are morally guided, right? And so that would be my legacy, just a little, get people to feel safe in their faith, and then acting out on it. A little easier for me to do because I'm at the back end of my career. It's hard to hurt me, right? But when you're young and you're scared, like I was, living in your car, and you're struggling with all these sort of things, I just want them to find a way to feel comfortable in that. And then, I talked before, we started the show. There's a practical issue going on here. There's this baby boomer generation is going to transfer a lot of wealth. And, it can either, I know even in the Catholic Church, we're talking a lot about this. Our whole thing is built on donations, right? And so maybe we ought to model ourselves more after the way the LDS community and others do it, where they do their best to try to keep that in the community to support these institutions that do their work. So I'm thinking about that too. How do we help that environment where there's transfer of wealth, and make sure that it doesn't, bleed off into the wrong places, or make us unable to support, these sort of institutions.
It's so important when you look at the numbers, it's going somewhere. What I've seen is $84 trillion over the next 2 decades. But let's imagine if just 10% of that went to kingdom causes, what could we do? And so thank you so much for being a champion of that. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you've poured out for our viewing and listening audience, Tom. And we'll stay in touch. We'll love to have you back on the show another time to tell us about how things have evolved and grown, and to share more wisdom with us. So thank you again for making the time.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.